Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive space station grow larger through the viewport. Nexus Prime was unlike anything humanity had ever built. The station stretched for hundreds of miles in all directions, covered in gleaming towers and spinning rings that caught the light of 3 different suns. "First time seeing it never gets old," said Dr. Lisa Carter, joining Jake at the window. She carried a tablet full of notes about the 47 alien species they were about to meet. "Hard to believe we're really here." Jake nodded but felt nervous. 3 months ago, Earth had received its first message from space. The Galactic Federation had noticed humanity's first faster-than-light ship and invited them to join the galactic community. It seemed like a dream come true. "Incoming transmission," called Lieutenant Steve Johnson from the communication station. "They're asking us to dock at Bay 77 Alpha." "Take us in, Steve," Jake ordered. Through the windows, he could see alien ships of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like giant crystals, others like living creatures with metal skin. The Federation had been ruling space for over 10,000 years, and it showed. Ambassador Claire Brooks smoothed her formal dress uniform. "Remember, we're representing all of humanity today. First impressions matter." The docking went smoothly, and soon they were walking through corridors filled with beings that looked like they came from every science fiction movie ever made. Tall, thin creatures with blue skin walked alongside short, furry aliens with too many eyes. Some floated in the air while others moved on dozens of legs. "The humans have arrived," one alien said to another as they passed. Jake heard the translator in his ear convert the words, but he caught the tone. It sounded almost bored. They entered a massive chamber with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. Hundreds of aliens filled tiered seats, all facing a central platform where the most important-looking being sat. At the center was Chancellor Zix Thera, a tall creature with silver skin and eyes like black diamonds. "Welcome, representatives of Earth," the Chancellor said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "We have been watching your species for some time." Ambassador Brooks stepped forward. "Thank you for this honor, Chancellor. Humanity is eager to join the galactic community and share in the wisdom of your ancient civilization." A sound filled the chamber that Jake's translator couldn't convert. It took him a moment to realize it was laughter. The aliens were laughing at them. "Share in our wisdom?" Chancellor Zixathera's voice carried clear amusement. "Young species, you have existed for mere thousands of years. Your longest-lived individuals barely reach a century. Your technology is so primitive that your fastest ships would take lifetimes to cross distances we travel in days." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Jake felt his face getting hot, but Ambassador Brooks kept her expression calm. "You call your homeworld Earth," continued a new voice. This came from Admiral Vextar of the Kronari Empire, a creature that looked like it was made of living metal and sharp edges. "A ball of mud and water that you have barely learned to leave. Your population fights endless wars over resources that we could provide with simple technology." Dr. Lisa Carter whispered urgently to Ambassador Brooks. "Their scan data is 3 years old. They don't know about our recent advances." "Even your emotions are chaotic," said an ancient-looking being from the Ethereal Council. "You feel anger, fear, love, hate all mixed together. How can such confused minds hope to understand the greater universe?" Chancellor Zixathera stood up, her form towering over the human delegation. "However, the Federation believes in giving all species a chance to prove themselves. You will be granted probationary membership." She waved one hand and a holographic document appeared in the air. "These are your terms. Earth will remain within your solar system. You may not establish colonies beyond it without our permission. You will provide raw materials from your asteroid belt as tribute for our protection. You may send 1 ship per year to trade with Federation worlds." Jake read the terms and felt sick. They were being treated like children who needed to be watched and controlled. "In return," the Chancellor continued, "we will protect you from the dangerous species that exist beyond your understanding. The Void Hunters, the Machine Collective, and others that would erase your species from existence without a second thought." "What if we refuse these terms?" Ambassador Brooks asked quietly. The laughter that followed was colder than before. "Then you return to your little world and hope those dangerous species never notice you," said Admiral Vextar. "Without Federation protection, most new species last less than 50 years. Dr. Carter stepped forward. "Chancellor, our scientists would be interested in cultural exchange programs. Perhaps our different perspective could offer something valuable." "Different perspective." The Ethereal Council member made a sound like breaking glass. Young species, your entire civilization could fit into one of our research stations. Your greatest scientists understand less about the universe than our children learn in primary education. Your lifespans are so short that you barely have time to learn anything before you die, added another alien from the crowd. How could such brief lives produce meaningful knowledge? Jake watched Ambassador Brooks's hands clench into fists, but her voice stayed steady. We understand. Humanity accepts the probationary terms. Excellent, said Chancellor Zixthera. Admiral Rodriguez will escort you back to your ship. Remember, these terms are for your own protection. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have matured as a species, we can discuss expanded privileges. As they walked back through the corridors, aliens stared at them with expressions Jake couldn't read but understood anyway. They were looking at curiosities, at pets that had learned a new trick. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Frank Rodriguez waited in the conference room. His weathered face showed no emotion as Ambassador Brooks explained the terms. So we mine asteroids for them and stay locked in our own solar system, he said finally. In exchange, they promise not to let anyone else kill us. That's about right, Ambassador Brooks replied. They see us as primitive children playing with dangerous toys. Dr. Carter pulled up her notes. Frank, I recorded everything. Their technology is impressive, but their attitudes are concerning. They genuinely believe we're inferior in every way. Admiral Rodriguez stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the massive Federation station. They think we're weak because we're emotional. They think we're stupid because we're young. They think we're helpless because we're small. He turned back to face them. Maybe it's time we showed them what happens when you underestimate humans. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. The galaxy had laughed at them today, but as he looked at the determined faces around him, he wondered if they would still be laughing in a few years. The Defiance undocked from Nexus Prime and began its long journey back to Earth, carrying news that would change everything. 3 years had passed since the humiliation at Nexus Prime. Dr. Amy Watson worked deep underground in a laboratory that officially didn't exist. The sign on the door read, Asteroid Mining Equipment Research, but the reality was far different. Pass me that Viridian crystal fragment, she called to her assistant. The one we pulled from their trade ship's engine core. The fragment glowed with inner light as Amy placed it under her scanner. For months, she had been reverse engineering every piece of alien technology that Earth's traders could get their hands on. The Federation thought humans were too primitive to understand their science. They were wrong. Dr. Watson, called Ryan Davis from across the lab. Colonel Davis had arrived an hour ago with another box of alien components. The mining operation on Ceres just sent back something interesting. Amy looked at the small device Ryan held. It looked like a twisted piece of metal, but her scanners showed energy patterns unlike anything in Federation databases. Where did they find this? She asked. Buried in an asteroid that the Chronari marked as worthless, Ryan replied. Turns out they don't scan as deep as we do. This thing is older than their civilization. Amy's eyes widened as she read the scanner results. Ryan, this isn't Federation technology. This is something else entirely. Something much more advanced. In orbit around Mars, Captain Steve Johnson was testing humanity's newest creation. The UES Ghost looked like any other human ship from the outside. But inside it was something revolutionary. Every system had been rebuilt using stolen alien technology and human innovation. Stealth systems online, reported his engineer. How are we looking on sensors? Steve checked his displays. According to Federation monitoring stations throughout the solar system, space around Mars was completely empty. The Ghost was invisible to their scanners. Perfect, he said. Take us to the test zone. The ship moved silently through space using engines that ran on principles the Federation thought humans couldn't understand. But humans had always been good at figuring out how things worked, especially when they were motivated. On Earth, Admiral Frank Rodriguez stood in the Pentagon's deepest bunker, looking at holographic displays that showed the real state of human civilization. To the Federation, Earth looked like a single world struggling to mine enough resources to pay their tribute. The truth was very different. Report, he said to the assembled officers. Colony ship Alpha reached Kepler 442b 6 months ago, said General Paul Mitchell. Population is now 50,000 and growing. Mining operations are producing materials we're not reporting to the Federation. The shipyards on Luna's far side are ahead of schedule, added another officer. We're launching 2 new ships per week, all equipped with stealth technology. Admiral Rodriguez nodded. While the Federation watched humanity's public activities, they had missed the real work happening in secret. Humans had always been good at hiding things when they needed to. What about our friends in the Federation? Rodriguez asked. They're getting more comfortable, replied Lieutenant Sarah Martinez, who ran Earth's intelligence operations. Chancellor Zixthara gave another speech last week calling us useful servants. The Kronari Empire is actually increasing our mining quotas because they think we're so obedient. Rodriguez almost smiled. Good. Let them keep thinking that. Back in her lab, Dr. Amy Watson was making a breakthrough that would change everything. The ancient device from the asteroid had revealed secrets that made Federation technology look primitive. Amy, you need to see this, called her assistant. The quantum resonance patterns don't match anything in Federation databases. Amy studied the readings and felt her heart race. This technology doesn't just manipulate energy, she whispered. It manipulates the basic forces that hold matter together. She ran more tests, hardly believing the results. The device could turn a ship's shields into weapons, make armor stronger by changing how atoms bonded, and create energy from nothing using quantum fluctuations. Get Admiral Rodriguez on the secure line, she ordered. Tell him we just found the key to winning a war. Meanwhile, Colonel Ryan Davis was training soldiers in tactics no Federation army had ever seen. The aliens fought wars like chess games with organized formations and predictable strategies. Humans were learning to fight like wolves. Remember, he told his troops, they expect us to be weak because we're emotional, but emotion is strength. Anger makes us fight harder. Fear makes us think faster. Love makes us protect each other no matter what. His soldiers were learning to use human nature as a weapon. They studied alien psychology, finding weaknesses in species that had never faced real threats. The proud Viridians couldn't handle unpredictable attacks. The logical ethereals became confused when faced with chaotic battle plans. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Zixthara was hosting another gathering of Federation leaders. The topic was the amusing little human species and their progress. They have been quite cooperative, she told the assembled aliens. Their tribute payments are on time, and they haven't attempted any unauthorized expansion. Admiral Vextar of the Kronari Empire laughed, a sound like grinding metal. I've increased their mining quotas 3 times this year. They just work harder without complaint. Very useful creatures. My scientists have been studying their biology, added an ethereal council member. Their short lifespans and emotional instability make them poor candidates for advancement. I estimate they will never progress beyond their current level. The aliens in the chamber expressed amusement at this assessment. To them, humans were like trained animals that had learned to perform useful tricks. Should we consider expanding their territory? Asked a representative from a minor species.
They seem eager to please. Absolutely not, Chancellor Zixthara replied firmly.
Young species must prove themselves over centuries before earning such privileges. Besides, they lack the mental capacity to handle the responsibilities of true civilization. None of the Federation leaders noticed the small human device hidden in the chamber's communication array. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez had placed it there during a routine diplomatic visit months ago. Every word they spoke was being recorded and transmitted to Earth. Back on Earth, Admiral Rodriguez listened to the recordings with his senior staff. The aliens' contempt for humanity was clear in every word they spoke. They think we're pets, said General Mitchell, his voice tight with controlled anger. Good, Rodriguez replied. Pets are harmless. Pets don't bite their masters. He paused, looking around the room, until they do. Dr. Amy Watson entered the briefing room carrying a small device that hummed with barely contained energy. Gentlemen, I'd like to show you something that will change how we think about this war. She activated the device and the air around it shimmered. This is based on technology older than the Federation. It can turn their own weapons against them, make their shields into bombs, and power our ships using their energy emissions. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How many of these can you build? Admiral Rodriguez asked. As many as we need, Amy replied. The raw materials are common. The aliens have been sitting on the secret to this technology for 10,000 years and never realized what they had. Colonel Ryan Davis spoke up. My teams are ready. We've identified key Federation installations throughout this sector. When you give the word, we can hit them all at once. Admiral Rodriguez stood up and walked to the holographic display showing Federation space. Hundreds of star systems controlled by aliens who thought humans were nothing more than useful animals. They want to see what humans are capable of, he said quietly. I think it's time we showed them. Captain Steve Johnson's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, the Ghost is in position at the edge of Chronari space. Stealth systems are working perfectly. They have no idea we're here. Rodriguez looked around the room at the faces of men and women who had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. 3 years of being laughed at, dismissed, and treated like children. The Federation thinks we're weak because we feel emotions, he said. They're about to learn that angry humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The message arrived at Earth 3 days after the massacre. Captain Nina Foster watched the recording with growing horror as Chronari ships bombarded the human colony on Kepler 442b from orbit. Attention, primitive humans. Admiral Vextar's metallic voice echoed through the command center. Your mining colony must be relocated to make room for a proper Chronari military base. You have 6 hours to evacuate. Nina watched as the colony's leader, Mayor Pete Collins, appeared on screen. Admiral, we have 50,000 people here. We need at least 2 weeks to evacuate safely. Please. The transmission cut off as energy beams from orbit turned the colony into glass. 50,000 humans died in minutes while Chronari officers laughed about pest control and clearing the vermin. The recording was broadcast across Federation space as routine news. Most aliens barely noticed. Some found it mildly interesting that humans had enough population to absorb such losses. Shut it off, Admiral Frank Rodriguez said quietly. His hands shook with rage as the hologram disappeared. How many others know about this? Everyone, replied General Paul Mitchell. The Chronari made sure it was public. They want other species to know what happens when you inconvenience the Federation. Dr. Amy Watson entered the command center carrying her latest weapon prototype. She had been working for 36 hours straight since the news arrived. It's ready, she said simply. Rodriguez looked at the device in her hands. It looked harmless, like a simple metal cylinder. Will it work? It will turn their shields into nuclear bombs, Amy replied. Every ship they send against us becomes a weapon we can use. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez stepped forward with intelligence reports. Frank, my sources say the Chronari are celebrating. They think the massacre will make other young species more obedient. Rodriguez stood up and activated the communication system that connected him to secret human bases throughout the galaxy. This is Admiral Rodriguez. Operation Midnight is now active. All units, execute your targets. Light years away, Captain Steve Johnson received the signal aboard the UES Ghost. His ship hung invisible in space near the Chronari Empire's primary military academy. You heard the Admiral, he told his crew. Let's show them what humans do to child killers. The Ghost moved silently toward its target. The academy was a massive space station where young Chronari learned to be warriors. They taught tactics, strategy, and the proper way to intimidate lesser species. Today it would teach them something different. Stealth systems holding, reported the engineer. They still don't see us. Steve watched the academy grow larger on his screen. Inside were thousands of future Chronari officers who would grow up thinking humans were nothing more than animals to be slaughtered. Fire, he ordered. Dr. Amy Watson's new weapons struck the academy's shields, but instead of bouncing off, they turned the defensive energy into pure destruction. The station's own shields became bombs that tore it apart from the inside. In seconds, the pride of the Chronari military became floating debris. Across Chronari space, similar attacks were happening simultaneously. Colonel Ryan Davis led ground forces against their main weapons depot on Vex Prime. Captain Alex Turner's commandos destroyed their communication centers. Commander Beth Wallace's fleet struck their border patrols. Every attack used the same principle: human innovation combined with alien overconfidence. The Chronari had never faced an enemy that could turn their own technology against them. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Zixathera was enjoying her morning meal when the emergency alerts began flooding in. What do you mean, under attack? She demanded of her aide. 23 Chronari installations have been destroyed, the aide reported, his voice shaking. Military academies, weapons depots, communication arrays, border stations, all destroyed within the same hour. The Chancellor's black diamond eyes widened. Who could coordinate such an attack? The Void Hunters? The Machine Collective? No, Chancellor, the aide whispered. The attackers used human ships. For the first time in her 1,000-year life, Chancellor Zixathera felt something she didn't recognize. Later, she would realize it was fear. Admiral Vextar received the news while reviewing plans for his next pest control operation. His metallic face couldn't show emotion, but his voice carried disbelief. Impossible. Humans don't have the technology or strategic capability for such coordination. The evidence is clear, Admiral, his intelligence officer reported. Human ships destroyed our academy using weapons that turned our own shields into explosives. Our border patrols report being attacked by vessels that appeared from nowhere. Vextar looked at the tactical displays showing the devastation. In one day, humans had crippled military assets it had taken the Chronari decades to build. How many ships did they use? He asked. Unknown, sir. Our sensors never detected them until they fired. Back on Earth, Admiral Rodriguez watched the battle reports with grim satisfaction. Operation Midnight had worked perfectly. Human forces had struck 23 targets simultaneously, destroying key Chronari military assets while suffering minimal losses. Casualty report, he ordered. 17 human wounded, none killed, replied General Mitchell. Chronari losses estimated at over 200,000. Rodriguez nodded. The numbers were important, but not as important as the message. For 10,000 years, the Federation had believed they were untouchable. Today that changed. What about Federation response? He asked. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez checked her intelligence feeds. Panic on Nexus Prime. Emergency council meetings across Federation space. They're calling it impossible and unprecedented. Sir, Dr. Amy Watson entered the command center with a tablet full of data. I've been analyzing the weapon's performance. The alien technology we captured works even better than I expected. We can scale this up significantly. Rodriguez looked at the woman who had made their victory possible. 3 years ago, the Federation had mocked human science as primitive. Now that same science was destroying their most advanced military installations. How long until they respond? He asked. Days, maybe hours, replied General Mitchell. When they do, it won't be 23 ships. It will be thousands. Rodriguez activated the communication system again. All units, this is Phase 1 complete. Prepare for Phase 2. They know we can bite now. Next, we show them how hard. On Nexus Prime, the Federation Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 47 species gathered to discuss the impossible news that humans had successfully attacked the mighty Chronari Empire. This changes nothing, declared an ethereal council member. They surprised us with primitive cunning, but they cannot stand against the full might of the Federation. I agree, said a Viridian noble, his crystal skin gleaming under the chamber lights. Young species occasionally have lucky moments. We will crush them quickly and make an example for other primitives. Chancellor Zixithara listened to the debates with growing unease. Something about these attacks felt different from typical young species rebellion. The coordination, the timing, the technology, it all suggested planning and capability beyond what humans should possess. Admiral Vextar, she called. How do you recommend we respond? The Chronari commander's voice carried cold fury. Overwhelm them. Send enough ships to turn their homeworld into molten rock. Make their extinction so public that no other species will dare challenge us. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. This was how the Federation had maintained order for millennia, with overwhelming force that made resistance seem hopeless. Very well, the Chancellor decided. Assemble a grand fleet. Every member species will contribute ships. We will demonstrate what happens when primitives forget their place. In the depths of space, human listening posts detected the massive Federation fleet assembling at Nexus Prime. 3,000 ships from 12 different species. Enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. Captain Nina Foster received the intelligence report aboard the UES Retribution. Her ship was one of 50 hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for the Federation's response. They're bringing everything they have, she told her crew. Good. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate angry humans. The war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin in earnest. The Federation had laughed at humans for 3 years. They wouldn't be laughing much longer. The Federation Grand Fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation. 3,000 ships from 12 species hung in formation near Alpha Centauri, waiting for orders to advance on Earth. Admiral Troy Barnes watched them through the viewport of his flagship, the UES Vengeance. They really brought everyone, said Commander Beth Wallace, studying the tactical displays. Chronari battlecruisers, Viridian crystal ships, Ethereal research vessels converted to carriers. Even species I've never seen before. Good, Admiral Barnes replied. The more they bring, the more we can destroy at once. Dr. Helen Price looked up from her workstation where she was making final adjustments to humanity's secret weapons. Admiral, the shield conversion systems are ready. When their ships try to protect themselves, they'll be creating bombs instead. Barnes nodded. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. The Federation thought they were facing a primitive species that had gotten lucky with a few surprise attacks. They were about to learn the truth. Incoming transmission from the Federation fleet, reported the communications officer. The hologram of Chancellor Zix Thera appeared on the bridge. Her silver skin gleamed with confidence as she delivered what she clearly thought would be humanity's surrender demand. Humans of Earth, she began, you have committed acts of terrorism against peaceful Federation members. Surrender immediately and accept punishment, or face complete annihilation. Admiral Barnes activated the response channel. Chancellor, this is Admiral Troy Barnes of the Human Space Navy. We have a counteroffer. Leave our space immediately, or we'll do to your entire fleet what we did to the Chronari military. The Chancellor's laugh echoed through the bridge. Admiral, you face 3,000 ships crewed by species with 10,000 years of combat experience. You command a few dozen vessels built by primitives who discovered faster-than-light travel only recently. This will not be a battle. It will be an extermination. We'll see, Barnes replied, cutting the transmission. Captain Alex Turner's voice came through the tactical network from his position behind the Federation fleet. Phoenix Squadron is in position. Stealth systems holding. They still can't see us. Similar reports came from human forces scattered throughout the system. The Federation had focused all their attention on Earth, missing the trap closing around them. All units, Admiral Barnes broadcast. This is for every human who died on Kepler 442b. This is for every insult, every dismissal, every time they called us primitive. Show them what humans can do when we're angry. The battle began with the Federation fleet advancing in perfect formation. Their ships moved like parts of a machine, each vessel in its assigned position. It was exactly the kind of organized, predictable attack that human commanders had been training to defeat. Fire, ordered Admiral Barnes. Human weapons struck the Federation fleet from 12 different directions at once. Dr. Helen Price's shield conversion. Technology turned defensive systems into bombs. Chronari battlecruisers exploded as their own armor became superheated plasma. Viridian crystal ships shattered when their energy shields inverted. But the Federation had numbers and they pressed their attack despite the losses. Energy beams and missile swarms filled space as 3,000 alien ships fired everything they had at human positions. Damage report, Barnes called out as his ship shook from impact. Forward shields at 60%, reported his engineer. But Admiral, look at this. On the tactical display, the Federation fleet was falling apart. Their rigid formations worked against them as human forces struck unpredictably from all angles. Captain Alex Turner's commandos appeared behind their lines, destroying command ships before vanishing again. Commander Beth Wallace's squadrons used chaotic attack patterns that confused alien tactical computers. They don't know how to fight us, she observed. 10,000 years of fighting other organized fleets, and they can't adapt to our tactics. General Lisa Thompson's voice came through from the ground-based weapons platforms hidden on asteroids throughout the system. Admiral, we're tracking their fleet movements. They're trying to retreat to defensive positions, but they're moving exactly where our computers predicted. Barnes smiled grimly. Human artificial intelligence had studied alien tactical patterns for 3 years. Every move the Federation made had been anticipated and countered before the battle even began. The tide turned when human reinforcements arrived. Ships that had been hidden for months throughout human space suddenly appeared, doubling the size of the human fleet. The Federation commanders realized with growing horror that they had been fighting less than half of humanity's actual military. Strength impossible, transmitted an ethereal commander, as his research vessel was boarded by human marines. Intelligence reports indicated humans had only primitive industrial capacity. Captain Nina Foster's response came through the communication channel as her marines captured the alien bridge. Intelligence was wrong. We've been building ships and training soldiers while you thought we were just mining asteroids. The truth was devastating for Federation morale. While they had been dismissing humans as harmless primitives, Earth had built secret shipyards, trained massive armies, and developed weapons technology that turned Federation advantages into weaknesses. Dr. Robert Kim's voice came from the research vessel that had been analyzing captured Federation ships throughout the battle. Admiral Barnes, I've cracked their fleet coordination protocols. All their ships are networked together for tactical coordination. Can you disrupt it? Barnes asked. Better than that, Kim replied. I can take control of it. Within minutes, Federation ships began firing on each other as their own coordination systems were turned against them. Vessels that had fought together for centuries suddenly became enemies as human computer viruses spread through their networks. The battle became a rout. Federation ships fled in all directions as their formations collapsed and their technology betrayed them. The pride of 12 species was scattered across space, leaving debris fields that would drift for centuries. Admiral Vextar's flagship was one of the last to retreat. As his ship limped away from the battle, he transmitted a message that would reach Federation space ahead of his damaged vessel. All stations, all fleets. His metallic voice carried desperation that had never been there before. Humanity is not what we believed. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are not controllable. Warn all Federation worlds, the humans are coming. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Barnes watched the last Federation ships disappear into hyperspace. Around Earth, the orbital shipyards that had been hidden for 3 years revealed themselves, building new vessels at a rate that would have seemed impossible to alien observers. Casualty report, he ordered. 412 humans killed, reported Commander Wallace. Federation losses estimated at over 2 million. Barnes nodded solemnly. Every human death mattered, but the numbers told the story. The species that the Federation had mocked as primitive had just destroyed the largest fleet in galactic history. What are your orders, Admiral? Asked Dr. Price. Barnes looked at the tactical display showing Federation space. Hundreds of star systems controlled by species that had treated humans like animals. Worlds where alien children learned that humans were inferior creatures suitable only for manual labor. We advance, he said simply. The Federation wanted to see what humans were capable of. Let's show them. Captain Alex Turner's voice came through the communication system from his position scouting toward Federation space. Admiral, I'm detecting panic broadcasts from Nexus Prime. They're calling for all available ships to defend the core worlds. How long until we reach the first Federation systems? Barnes asked. 6 hours at maximum speed, replied the navigation officer. Barnes activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, all units, prepare for Phase 3. The Federation has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years through fear and overwhelming force. Today they learn what happens when humans use the same tactics. The human space navy formed up and jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth's solar system for the first time as conquerors rather than petitioners. Behind them, the wreckage of the Federation Grand Fleet served as a monument to the danger of underestimating humanity. In the depths of space, automated Federation monitoring stations detected the approaching human fleet and sent desperate warnings to their commanders. For the first time in millennia, the hunters had become the hunted. The galaxy that had laughed at humans was about to learn a new emotion. Terror. President Maria Gonzalez stood in the White House Situation Room, watching holographic displays that showed human fleets advancing through Federation space like wildfire. In 6 months, half the galaxy had fallen to forces that the aliens had dismissed as primitive just a year before. Report, she ordered. Viridian Prime surrendered this morning, said Admiral Chris Murphy, commander of the final assault fleets. Their crystal cities went dark for the first time in 5,000 years when we cut their power grid. They're requesting terms. The ethereal research stations at Sigma Draconis have been captured, added General Lisa Thompson. Dr. Kim's teams are already analyzing their ancient knowledge archives. President Gonzalez nodded, studying the tactical displays. The war had moved faster than anyone expected. Federation resistance was crumbling as member species realized that their 10,000-year dominance was ending. What about Nexus Prime? She asked. Admiral Murphy's expression grew serious. Surrounded. Chancellor Zixithara and the remaining Federation leadership are trapped on the station with about 50,000 alien civilians. They're using ancient doomsday weapons as a last resort. How ancient? Older than their civilization, replied Dr. Robert Kim through the communication system. He was aboard the research vessel analyzing captured Federation technology. planet-killer devices from whatever species ruled the galaxy before them. Weapons that can crack worlds open like eggs. President Gonzalez considered this information. The Federation had been defeated, but cornered animals were dangerous. Options? We could lay siege, suggested Admiral Murphy. Wait them out. Or we could show them our latest innovation, said Dr. Amy Watson, entering the Situation Room with a device that hummed with barely contained energy. I've been working on this since we captured the ethereal archives. She activated the device and space around Nexus Prime appeared in holographic detail. This technology doesn't just convert their shields into weapons. It can convert any energy source, including the power cores of planet-killer devices. The implications were staggering. You can turn their doomsday weapons against them? The president asked. Better, Amy replied. I can turn them into energy sources for our ships. The more powerful their weapons, the stronger we become. Admiral Murphy opened a communication channel to the fleet surrounding Nexus Prime. All ships, prepare for final assault. Dr. Watson's technology is being transmitted to your engineering sections now. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Zix Thera stood in the central command chamber surrounded by the last representatives of Federation power. Through the massive viewports, she could see human ships in every direction. Ships that moved with purpose and coordination that her species had never imagined possible. Status report, she demanded. All outer defenses have fallen, reported her military aide. Human forces control every approach to the station. They're demanding our unconditional surrender. Activate the ancient weapons, she ordered. If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will destroy it rather than let primitives claim it. Her aide hesitated. Chancellor, those weapons haven't been used in millennia. We're not certain they're still functional. Do it. Deep in the station's core, machines older than recorded history began to awaken. Energy patterns that could unmake planets started building toward critical mass. The ancient builders of these weapons had designed them to be absolutely unstoppable. They had never imagined humanity. Captain Nina Foster watched from the bridge of the UES Retribution as the doomsday weapons began charging. Energy readings spiked beyond anything in human databases. Dr. Watson's modification is installed, reported her engineer. Ready to activate on your command. All ships, Nina broadcast, execute conversion protocol. The ancient weapons fired, sending beams of pure destruction toward the human fleet. Energy that could shatter worlds reached out to annihilate the upstart species that had dared challenge the Federation. Instead, the beams struck human ships and disappeared into energy collectors that converted the planet-killer power into fuel for human systems. Ships that had been damaged in the approach suddenly showed full power. Weapons that had been running low on energy now blazed with more force than their designers had ever intended. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Zix Thera watched in horror as her ultimate weapons made the human fleet stronger instead of destroying it. Impossible, she whispered. Those weapons destroyed the previous galactic civilization. They should be unstoppable. Admiral Chris Murphy's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. Chancellor Zix Thera, this is Admiral Murphy of the Human Space Navy. Your weapons are now powering our ships. Surrender immediately or we will demonstrate what happens when humans get really angry. For the first time in her 1,000-year life, the Chancellor understood what defeat felt like. We surrender. General Lisa Thompson led the boarding parties that secured Nexus Prime. Human Marines moved through corridors where no primitive species was supposed to set foot, past chambers where Federation leaders had made decisions affecting trillions of lives. They found Chancellor Zix Thera in the central command chamber, her silver skin dulled with despair. Around her, representatives of 47 species waited to learn their fate. Chancellor, General Thompson said formally, by order of President Maria Gonzalez and the Human Republic, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity and multiple acts of genocide. We were the Federation, the Chancellor said weakly. We ruled for 10,000 years. How could primitives like you destroy us so completely? General Thompson looked at the alien leader who had once called humans useful servants and primitive pets. You want to know how? She asked. You made the same mistake every bully makes. You thought being bigger and older made you better. You never learned that the most dangerous humans are the ones who have something to protect and nothing left to lose. The formal surrender ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. President Gonzalez spoke from the Federation's former capital, as human flags were raised over the ancient seat of galactic power. To all species who once lived under Federation rule, she began, humanity offers you a choice. Join the human galactic republic as equals, with full rights and representation, or choose independence and govern yourselves as you see fit. The age of forced submission is over. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had lived under Federation control for millennia chose to join humanity rather than risk facing the same fate as their former masters. Dr. Robert Kim's analysis of Federation archives revealed the full scope of their crimes. Hundreds of species had been enslaved or exterminated over the centuries. Entire civilizations had been wiped out for the crime of refusing to submit. The Federation wasn't just arrogant, he reported to President Gonzalez. They were systematic oppressors who used fear and violence to maintain control. The galaxy is better off without them. 6 months after the fall of Nexus Prime, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship in orbit around the former Federation capital. The man who had once been humiliated by alien arrogance now commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. A communication request came from Earth. President Gonzalez appeared on the holographic display, smiling with the satisfaction of a job well done. Jake, she said, the Senate has approved the final expansion of the Republic. 43 former Federation species have voted to join us. The remaining 4 have chosen independence, which we're respecting. Jake nodded. And the former Federation leadership? Chancellor Zix Thera and her inner circle are being tried for war crimes. The evidence from their own archives is overwhelming. They'll spend the rest of their lives in prison, thinking about the species they destroyed. Jake looked out at the space around Nexus Prime, now renamed New Geneva, and serving as the capital of human space. Ships from dozens of species work together under human leadership, building a galaxy based on cooperation rather than fear. Any regrets? The president asked. Jake thought about the journey that had brought them here. The humiliation at first contact, years of being treated like animals, the massacre that started the war, and the galaxy-spanning conflict that followed. Just one, he said finally. I regret we didn't do this sooner, the president laughed. Jake, I'm going to make one final broadcast to the galaxy. I want you to deliver it. Jake activated the galaxy-wide communication system that once carried Federation propaganda. Now it would carry a different message. Citizens of the galaxy, he began. This is Admiral Jake Morrison, speaking from the capital of the human galactic republic. 3 years ago, the Federation invited humanity to join galactic civilization. They laughed at us, called us primitive, and treated us like animals. He paused, looking out at the fleet of ships representing species from across the galaxy, all united under human leadership. To the former Federation leadership, wherever you are, he continued, humanity has a question for you. You laughed at us when we arrived in your grand chambers. You mocked our emotions, our short lives, and our chaotic thinking. The communication system carried his words to every inhabited world in the galaxy, to species that had lived in fear for millennia and were now free. Are you still laughing? The galaxy that had once mocked humanity was silent. In the depths of